There's a song by the British band Keane called "You Don't See Me." The singer says, like beautiful dolls, all made up and bright, radiant people in splintering light, all moving at the speed of life. Reflected in each other's eyes, but you're moving so fast through this beautiful scene. You don't see me. You don't see me. That cry of the invisible. See me, please. Frank Ostaseski is a Buddhist chaplain working with people who are dying. And asked about the disconnect between the suffering we see all around us and the compassion that one would think would be a natural response. He wisely says, one reason for the apparent absence of compassion is that we rarely allow ourselves to directly experience suffering. We are masters at distraction. A large portion of our day is consumed by the activity of trying to avoid suffering. We often choose temporary relief or comfort over healing, over seeing what is actually true. And although this is contemporary language, it comes straight out of the 5th century BCE when the Buddha observed the same thing. So it isn't only cell phones and the little chimes of notifications to blame. That's just helped us distract and distract and distract. Ostaseski wrote a book, which I highly recommend, called The 5 Invitations, What Death Can Teach Us About Living Fully, Living Truly. And I noticed that while the word presence does not come up in the list of those 5 invitations, 3 of them are directly connected to it. One of the invitations, he says, we receive from living as if in proximity to death, which we all are, is welcome everything, push away nothing. Just welcome whatever comes up. Don't push it away. Another is bring your whole self to the experience. And another is find a place of rest in the middle of things. One of the most vivid illustrations I've seen in recent years of this presence, this attention, noticing, came from a performance artist, a Serbian performance artist named Marina Abramović. In her piece in 2010, performed at the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in New York City, called The Artist is Present. For 2.5 months, all day, every day, 8 hours, except on Fridays when the museum was open for 10 hours, she sat herself down in a chair in a big open space. And a chair was open across from her. And anybody visiting the museum could just sit across from her. And she would gaze into their eyes. Over and over again, people were free to sit for just a few minutes, or, which most did. They could decide when to get up, so a few sat almost the entire day. And the only rules were no conversation and no touching. Just the artist and the gaze that she makes available to you. And so over and over again, you see her looking into the eyes of the person across from her. Whatever emotions were moving through her, and from what she reports, they were many and intense. She kept a fairly impassive face, just looking. The person would get up, sometimes with a little bow or nod. And Abramovich would lower her gaze, gather herself, and when the next person sat down, raise her eyes to theirs. Over and over again. All day, 8 or 10 hours, for 2.5 months. What happens, and you can see it even if you weren't there, because there's a wonderful documentary made of it called The Artist is Present, is people gaze back, of course. And what crosses their faces, sometimes it's impossible to tell. Sometimes it's a smile. Oftentimes their eyes fill up and overflow. They return her attention. 2 people. Being present, just being present to one another. She said that when she first suggested this to the curator as a piece of the retrospective of her work that was taking place there, so you see the little pun there. It's not just a retrospective. The artist is present during this. She suggested it to the curator, and the curator said, "This is New York. No one is going to sit and just be looked at. People are in a hurry here." But she persisted. Curator said, okay. And people lined up around the block just to sit in the presence of the artist and be present to the artist. In the last days, when people were concerned that maybe they wouldn't get their chance, people camped out early, long before. You know, I think when 2 people look at each other in that way, in a way that usually only lovers, babies looking into the parents' eyes, the parents looking back, maybe close friends over a long conversation. So seldom look at one another that way. I think it's so different than what Keane sings about, reflected in each other's eyes, like just passing mirrors. Oh yeah, you're there, but then you're on. We are reflected in each other's eyes in a very deep way, in that when we look at somebody, we are intensely aware that they are looking at us. And we feel seen even as we are seeing. Now, for some people, this would be intolerable. Eye contact is very painful. So if that's you, take this as a metaphor, because I think what Abramovich tapped into is how much we long to be seen. Maybe not face to face, don't look at me like that, but to be known without judgment, just seen as we are. I think what's going on there is, if Mary Oliver is correct, and I think she is, that attention is the beginning of devotion. I think we're seeing love. Love between complete strangers. Somebody who has appointed herself the task of looking at whoever comes. Children, old people, and famous people, and mostly people she's never heard of and will never see again. To be seen for yourself. Is that not the longing? The longing of our hearts, and how often we are not seen. Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General of the United States some years ago, gave a report during his tenure called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. He gathered together studies showing that in the United States, we are suffering an epidemic of what people might not identify as loneliness, but they say things like, I haven't talked to anybody in days. Or, I walk through the streets, but nobody seems to see me. Being our chief official of public health, he reported on the health effects on our bodies, psychologically, socially, and they're devastating. Inevitably, of course, we always want to compare it to smoking cigarettes. So, loneliness, social isolation can be as deleterious to our physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So he says, you compare those things. It's bad for us. And the things that we can do, the report ends with, what can we do as a business? What can you do as community groups? What can you do as individuals and so on? In our individualistic way, which I think is not unconnected to our loneliness and isolation, the list of what you can do as an individual is longest of all. And I'll come back around to it. But I do want to note how much social engagement, organizations like this one, and like the Living Room, and like we heard from the Elder Council, that was it the Council on Aging? Am I remembering the correct name? Their director shared how people say when they're brought meals, they just brought meals. That's the purpose of this particular program, but they say that can be the only contact that they have all day. So really, it's not just meals they're being brought. Yeah. I lost track of where that sentence was going, but that we have social structures for bringing us together, for addressing social isolation and helping us to learn to connect with one another and keeping us from that life-threatening condition of loneliness. And those, of course, since Murthy's time have only been defunded and attacked, and it's more and more difficult to bring people together. Catherine's reflection reminds us how much when we slow down, when we give ourselves silence and time to really be present to what and who is all around us, enables us to also be present to ourselves. We fill our lives with whatever we give our attention to, Oliver Burkeman says, as Catherine shared with us. And so she gave her attention to the scents of sage and lavender. They're all around, all the time. Silence and time and letting go of distraction can help you to know these things. The presence of others, the awareness of our own feelings, which are always there, like the blooming sage and lavender. And what are they working on us when we're not even aware of them? Until we become present to ourselves. Until we stop moving so fast that we can become present to ourselves. Maybe this is one reason we avoid it. Maybe this is one reason we turn to distraction. Because it can be hard. It's hard work. And you encounter feelings that maybe make you cry. Maybe it was easier to not recognize regret, grief, anger. But here we are, committed to living authentic lives, living fully, yes? And that's part of the package. Abramovich, every time she looked into someone's eyes, they were looking into hers. It's intense work, 8 hours straight, 10 hours straight. Not surprisingly, she was exhausted at the end of the day, but she's also really clear about the rewards. She's done a lot of performance pieces in a lifetime that continues of producing challenging, interesting art, often about intimate experiences and endurance. And she talks about how this piece, this 2.5-month performance with so many people in New York City, changed her. The pain and the loneliness she saw, she says. But also that there's a profound gratitude in being able to meet somebody that way. This is something we can do. We don't have to set up in a museum as a renowned artist with a retrospective from a major museum. No, we just have to be more present to people. Perhaps to people who tend to be invisible to us, whoever that is for you. I mean, we encounter so many people in our kind of busy urban lives that, like cell phones, the setup kind of invites us not to see each other, not to really be present. And so if you're a cashier in your job, you could really look into the face of each person who comes through your line. And if you're a customer, you could make sure to really look at the cashier. Ever have one of those interactions and then realize you couldn't describe that person if you needed to? Hi, how's your day going? Feels so incredibly different just to have that moment of real human contact. And then here's a place that if you're a person walking on the street and someone else is soliciting funds from you or anything else, eye contact is dangerous, and so it's so easy to just not look. What would happen if we committed, whether or not I'm going to sign their petition or give them money or whatever it is they're asking for, I will make eye contact with them. I will make human contact. I will be present to them and let them know that they are present to me. I will offer them that gift. I'm sorry, no. Thanks for being out here. Or just a smile. You're here. I'm here. We're human together. It's a gift. Dr. Murthy identified an epidemic, and we need those social structures, the ones that have been defunded and dismantled, all the more reason for us to do what we can to rebuild them. And as individuals, in the meantime, and always, what we can do is embrace presence as we go through our days, especially the presence of other human souls who are making their way through what can be a very lonely and difficult world.